Okay, great. Once again, thank you. So once again, good evening to everyone and welcome to our second webinar in August. The first one was actually helping us eat right and make lovely lunch and dinners and keep our family healthy. And today's one is actually one of all the webinars are important, but one of my best webinars or topic to talk about. Everything parents need to know about the 11 plus entrance examination. A bit of housekeeping. You can keep your camera off or on, depends on how you like it. If you can stay muted, just so that we reduce the interference, that would be great. I will present for around 20-25 minutes, and then we'll open it up for us to have questions, and then we'll we have two parents that just want to share with us their own 11 plus journey, just to encourage other parents that it's doable, it's achievable, our children will do well. And then we'll close up the night, and actually we'll also have an offer for our new parents joining us this autumn. So do stay up to the end. Thank you. So if you do have any question while I'm presenting, it'll be great if you can pop it in the chat so that I don't forget, or you don't forget, and I can pick it up when I finish the presentation. During the question and answers, you can also use the raise hand function if you prefer to answer your question live, or if you still want to pop in the chat, that's equally fine by me. So we will kick it off, and I will tell you a little bit about myself for those that do not know me. My name is Lara Okpor. I'm an educational consultant, a certified reading therapist. In everything I do, I always go back to reading because that was where the journey started for me as a mom and also as an education consultant. I've got over 9 years experience in child development and education. I specialize in working with teachers, children, and parents to find innovative, exciting, and sustainable ways to transform teaching, make it interesting for our children, improve their competency and confidence in themselves. I specialize in early years reading program, and I also enjoy making sure that the learning platform is important and also interesting to our children, for them to learn and enjoy learning, and also make sure that it's something they want to come back to. We don't want learning to be boring. One thing I always tell parents is, if your child doesn't like coming to the center or joining online, we want them to enjoy it. But at the same time, we want them to enjoy learning, because that's what more important to us about their educational journey. Okay, so a little bit about what we do at AMP Learning before I go into it. We start our kids up with early reading and mastery, and I always bring this up because when a child can read, then it gives us the opportunity to teach them other concepts like maths, English, science, which then leads us to building competence and confidence in this key subject in primary school as well as secondary school up to year 10. We also support children that are taking entrance exams, be it the 4+ independent school exams and the grammar school exam at the 11 plus level, so 7+, 11+, as well as different pluses that come up for the independent school. We support our children also to be able to stand out at entrance at 11+ interviews, and this we do through coaching them, through supporting them with how to come across confidently, knowing a bit about themselves, actually, as much as they can, and just giving them the confidence to be able to talk about who they are, what they do outside school, and their family. Okay, so I'm going to also be looking up by my side because I wrote some notes down. I wouldn't want to miss out on anything. So let's get right into it. And what is the 11+? So the 11+ exam, as majority of our parents on the call on this webinar know, is taken towards the end of primary school. So year 5, end of year 5, beginning of year 6. So for those currently going to year 6, they have the 11+ from the first, second, third week of September. So it's taken towards the end of primary school. It's a competitive selective exam to allocate spaces to grammar school. And if you're interested in independent school as well, they also take it towards the end of the autumn term or sometimes in January. It tests 4 key subjects: maths, English, verbal and non-verbal reasoning. But depending on the school that your child is applying to, this might vary in the allocation of time and topics that is covered. So to find out which type of test applies to your area or the school that your child is interested in, or the local council, always check the council, check the school, ask questions, pick up the phone, ask them. But this information is available to as many parents that would like to know what is covered in the school of choice that they want for their child. So when is the exam? For grammar schools, mostly early mid-September, towards the end of September, sometimes depending on if they have a lot of students applying for a particular school. In order to be able to accommodate all the children, they can split the days on the entrance exam, depending on the dates. So for independent school, which also have an intake at this age, usually early December. Since COVID, we found out that schools have started doing the exams like November, early December, and January, although some tests happen in February. But by end of February, before the school placements for the state school come out, the children are told or informed about their success in these exams. So what is covered in the 11 classes? So for example, for maths, these are just some of the concepts and topics that is covered in depth. I just want us to bear in mind that we encourage children to start as soon as possible. From us, our children, when parents ask me, when do our kids start? I said they start when they come to us to read. And they wonder, what do you mean? If your child can read, then you have a chance to start teaching them maths and other subjects. It's very important, apart from showing them how to count. But if you want an independent learner, they need to learn how to read. Reading opens the world out for our children. So we start as early as 3.5, and I mean that in a light way, not that we are pre-grooming 3.5-year-olds for the 11 plus. But no, once your child have a solid foundation, the sky is their limit. So these are the topics that is covered at the 11 plus entrance exam. So for example, children that join us this September in year 5 have a 1-year program with us up to next year when they actually sit the exams, and they cover majority, or if not all, of these topics in depth. So you can imagine if a child has gaps, it might take a bit longer to get them up to speed. So that's why I say to our parents, we start them up at 3.5. Each year group of our program is making sure that your child has no gaps, your child is well equipped in the subject or topics they're supposed to know in each year group, so that when they actually come to when they're preparing for the 11 plus, they're in a very good place. So these are the topics covered in our maths curriculum, not just for ant learning, but for the 11 plus. And the syllabus is based on the national curriculum. And also we can recommend books for you to use. So for the independent school exams, we recommend Galore Park books, ISEB books. For the grammar school, the GL, CL, CEM style books, depending on the exam body your child will be sitting. Generally, for preparation for do-it-yourself books, we recommend Bond. Bond books up to 10 to 11 for grammar school, but if your child will be sitting 11 plus for independent school, we say you use Bond books up to 11 to 12. So if you're looking for materials to use, depending the time for your children, Bond books are very useful. For the 11 plus English curriculum, it's also based on the Key Stage 2 national curriculum. Proficiency in spelling, punctuation, grammar, and sentence structure is quite important, because this forms around sometimes 50% of what is assessed. Strong reading comprehension skills, answer question with precision, clarity, and your full manner. So how do I help my child with this? Make sure your child is exposed to reading. Read with them as early as possible before bed. And when they're able to read for themselves, get them a book. We provide our students with reading lists for each particular year group where they can go to the library to pick up the books, make it fun. Or if you can buy this book or swap with friends. But sometimes we don't really encourage you to buy them because they are widely available in the local library. And the children also need to be able to write creatively. So some exam boards, for example, if it's Kent, they want the children to be able to write a story. Some, for example, if it's Dame Alice, they just want English, maths, and reasoning. So depending on the exam board as well. But the curriculum covers all of this that I've mentioned. For reasoning, if we go on to reasoning, let's make sure I've covered that. So for verbal reasoning, we have all these topics that the children have to learn. One thing about reasoning is this part of the 11 plus assessment, it assesses children's ability to undo both language and conceptual thinking. And as mentioned before, different examples, we assess this area in different ways. But one of the things about reasoning is it's not taught in school. So parents or tuition or tutors have to teach the children verbal and non-verbal reasoning. However, if your child has a solid foundation in maths and English, it goes a long way to be able to help them. So for example, for this, we recommend using practice tasks as early as 7 to 8-year-old bond books reasoning. It will allow your child to gain an understanding of the sort of skills which will be required of them. A majority of parents struggle to support their children with reasoning, verbal or non-verbal, because we didn't learn it. However, the children's brain are wired in such a way that once they are familiar with the concept, they do get it. So don't worry about that. The children do get it once they are shown how it's done. So next is 11 plus non-verbal reasoning, and here can be tricky for most parents as well as children, but once the children are taught and shown how it's done, they do get it. So unlike the English and maths, which have the advantage of closely corresponding with skills and knowledge your child will have encountered in the classroom, the non-verbal reasoning component of the 11 plus the children will be very less familiar with this. So the children need to engage with shapes, patterns, logical relationships. Sometimes I say, if you can introduce your child to, what's it called? There's some different books where it's not Sudoku, but it's being able to, Sudoku is an example, being able to pick up words in when it's jumbled up, but those little activities help your child be able to identify patterns, pick up things here and there. And there are different practice books as well that can be used. So let's go on to 11 plus grammar school entrance exam. Okay, so there are currently 163 grammar school in England with a total of 188,000 children. They are selective in nature. Some are semi-selective, which means some look at the distance to school, and some are purely based on academic performance. There's also state boarding school, which can be selective as well as without charging tuition fees. So all your child needs to do is enter the entrance exam, but then you pay for boarding. So that's an alternative to independent school, but it's also a grammar school. So it's something that I would suggest if you want your child to go to a boarding school, you can actually research state boarding school. There are quite a few. And we've done a webinar, actually, if you have a look on our webinar page on the website, that talks about the state secondary school. Independent school. So independent schools are secondary schools or primary schools that charge fees. Some are very selective, others are not, but majority are. And it's just based on the limited spaces that they have. So many provide a wide set of study options, particularly in areas like languages, sports, and the class sizes are smaller. So I'll give you an example of the shock some of the children face. So for example, a child coming from a prep school, independent primary school, and where they are just 16 in a classroom, and then 16 in a classroom, 40 in a year group, goes to a secondary school, grammar school, where there are 200 children in the year group and 30 in a class. That's already the culture shock. So it's something that, depending on what's applicable for your child and what's right for your child, independent school, it's a great option if for parents are able to afford it. So fees range from £12,000 a year for a junior day school to over £45,000 a year for boarding school, senior boarding school. Some offer generous scholarship and bursary to help talented children or children that are very capable and competent in their academics. So let's look at the different exam boards that govern the 11 plus. As I said earlier, depending on where you're applying, the exam boards for CEM, so for example, Bexley, CEM writes their exams. GL assessment is most common. And and also CSSE, which is the Consortium of Selected Schools in Essex. For the independent school, we've got the Independent School Examination Board, but there are so many more exam boards depending on where your child is going or will go, and depending on the area. So always have a look at the website. So other 11 plus exam boards like SET, they also set their papers differently. So it's always good to check the exam board for the school that you're interested in. So let's go into how do we get our children ready. So you have few options available to you, depending on your family dynamics, depending on how much time you've got. What I would encourage is to make sure that every year group, you are very sure where your child is. So if your school provides you with a end of year report or termly report, have a look in detail, talk about it with the teacher so you know if there are gaps, if they're exceeding expectation, if they're just above expectation, or if they are below, so you know what to do. Either use the summer break, most of us do, to help consolidate any gaps or build capability, or if they're able to just start looking ahead. So it's always good to use those information to help us decide how to help your child. But I said there are quite a few options for you. So you've got private tuition, which will be one-to-one group. Usually for this, I am biased in a way. I always like group, not because I provide tuition, but because sometimes the 11 plus journey is a long journey. For example, our children in year 5, they have a whole year to prepare. If you start one-to-one too early, it gets to a point that your child gets tired and fatigued. But if it's a group option, they have the company of other children, like-minded children, in an environment where they challenge each other. They're also aiming at a common goal, and it's learning is fun, and it's just not a chore. So depending on your child and what works for you, I would think about, do you want to do a one-to-one or a group tuition? There's some guided courses, and some parents, I find that some parents actually know what they're doing, prefer to go along with this, and this is probably they just buy a course online and they just follow the structure. Mostly good for children that are self-driven. Parents have a lot of time for them and able to monitor their progress. And also we have DIY books, so like Bond books, CGP books. Those are fantastic booklets, books, Schofield, Sims and Schofield books, quite a lot of books, but you have to know, just not complete books or papers, you want to teach the concept as well. So I find out that parents that are kind of good in English or good in maths are able to use this book successfully. We find that parents that do tuition also combine that, which is a good combination, so that if they've done their own work and they have a bit more time, they're able to use these books, and parents use mix and match. So it depends on what works for you. So have a think around that. So let's move on to the next one. So everything parents need to know. So if you're just starting off and you have, and you're wondering, where do I start? I would suggest, what do you want for your child? I always start with that. What do you want for your child? Because it's very important to know where we're going and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Do I want an independent school? I want a grammar school. For us, I wanted a prep school for our children when we were younger, because I believe that a solid foundation, once a child has a solid foundation in primary school and they've had the study habit, secondary school will be a walk in the park when you've already imbibed that values and those in their day. And secondary school, I'd prefer to go grammar school because equally fantastic provision for the children. You just don't pay fees. Fine. There are so many children in a class and in the year group, but it's also good for the children to challenge them and for them to know that life is not a bed of roses. So it depends on what you want for your child, but have a think about the schools you have in mind. We had 3-4 schools in mind, but then towards the end of the journey, we narrowed it down to one based on great reviews, based on few recommendations from parents, and also based on the suitability for my son, especially because he's also sporty and I want him to enjoy school. So a school like Kiwi Boys is ideal, is fantastic, but it wouldn't have worked for us because my son would want a school where he can play football, play rugby, do sports, and also good academic background. So you need to know your child, and then you can narrow it towards the end the schools that you want your child to. But have it in mind so that when you're preparing, if you're preparing, thinking about a GL school, you also know that if Bexley, for example, is an option, you have to also make sure your child is exposed to CEM kind of papers, just so that you're preparing accurately. Okay, once you've narrowed it down on school, you can visit these schools, but just think about what's right for your child, what's right for you. You don't want them traveling an hour as well, to and fro from school. So have a think about that. And then your child's school does not prepare your child, so we need to know that. So because my child's school doesn't prepare my child for 11 plus, what do we need to do as a family? That will impact or help you decide on what your after school activity is going to look like, what the activities your children will pick up. And because if you overload it with so many activities during the week, how do you want to include a few 1 to 3, 4 hours of study within the week? So try not to put too much on the children's plate, especially if they're in year 5, year 4, you can keep it things as it is, but just have a routine for your child that works. So after that, understand the exam board for the chosen area or school that you've decided on, because that will guide your preparation. Once you've done that, check your local council to know when the application is required. So we are starting this because we found that we did a webinar like this in February, and I found that, okay, it's best we do it earlier in the year beginning for the parent, just so that they can start thinking ahead. So have a look at the local council. Most of the time, it's around April, May, June that the application opens up. And then once you know when it opens up, just put a timer and a date, a calendar on your phone, just so that you don't forget. We've had parents prepare their child for the whole year and forget to make the application. That was devastating. So please, but then obviously you still got time to do that. But yeah, another year flies down very quickly. Next, decide on how you want to prepare your child. Do you want one-to-one? Do you want groups? Do you want books? Do you want to use the other options that we've spoken about? What would be right and applicable for your child to use? One of the reasons parents come to us is because we provide you with a structure. You don't have to think about what topics to cover for your child. We've already done that for you. You don't have to think about, am I doing it right? The teachers will give you feedback at the end of the day to let you know where your child is, and you get to speak to them as well on your child's progress. You get a report at the end. So all of this is important to help you as we remember that majority of the schools don't prepare the children for the 11 plus, because the school's obligation is to make sure your child gets secondary school place, not to decide where they go. So there are many good comprehensive school as well. But if it's 11 plus you want, or selective grammar school you want for your child, we have to go through the 11 plus route. Have a plan and follow it. I find that a lot of parents compare their children a lot, and especially our community, it's very, very rampant. And I just encourage us to know your child, know what's right for your family, your family dynamics, stick to a plan. You can review and tweak as it works, and you assess the suitability of it. Because I find that sometimes a parent will go to one tuition for 3 months, move away because their friend has gone to another, but it might not just be what's right for your child. So think about it and decide what is right for my child. This is what works for us, and you stick to it. And when the time is right for you to make the application, please complete the application. At Mount Learning, we remind our parents when this is due, and we also have a webinar or a meeting before then, just so that we check in where we are, as well as just give you a nudge to make the application. And then preparation and study skills. One thing, as a young child as well, growing up, in Nigeria. One thing that helped me and my sibling was we went to tuition after school. It was part of our routine. My dad picks us up at school, straight home to eat lunch, straight back to the tuition center where we have, I think, longer hours during the week. I remember going twice or three times during the week. And that's all we knew. Of course, the other activities, few of them that we could do then, but our children have the opportunity to do swimming, learn an instrument, and let's do that. But if you can put in a good structure of after school routine, even when they get to secondary school, it will benefit you because that's what they know, that's what they're used to. An after school routine could be 4 to 5 after school. The child rests, pick up their homework from school, 5 to 6. If you are swimming, that's done. After 6, maybe an hour, half an hour of reading, but they have a structure because children really thrive well with structure. But having those study skills help them to revise what they've learned. For example, if they attend Saturday school, or what they've learned at school, and if they're in secondary school, the same thing, because having that skill developed early in life really helps the children when they grow up, and they are more independent than when you are chasing them to do all of these things. So how do we ace the 11 plus? It's important that our children have, Fola, you can go to the next one, thank you. Our children have a good study skills in the right environment. As I mentioned earlier, unless your child is a genius, after whatever they learn at school, at the moment is not enough. If they don't revise what they've learned, unless they are able to remember everything their teacher says to them verbatim, majority of our children need to pick up their book and revise, even need to pick up a novel and read, because they learn new words, new vocabulary, which makes the English aspect of 11 plus so easy. If your child is exposed to different books, it helps their comprehension, it helps the spelling, grammar, and punctuation a lot, and even with the story writing, because their creative side is open. So all of this has to be developed in the right environment, the right study skills at home. Please don't put too much after school activity packed full that your child is going from one to another, and by the time they eat the bed at 8 o'clock or 7:30, whenever their bedtime is, they can't even pick a book to read. So let's just be mindful of what's right and what's applicable for us. I have another 5 minutes. So after school routine, make sure it's doable, it's not too tight, and it gives you a bit of breathing space as a family, as for the children to also sometimes not do anything and sometimes pick up a book or read. Great preparation options, as we mentioned, so tuition, courses, or the books, depending on what works for you. Your child needs to have a solid revision plan for the last 2 months of preparation, and the last 4 weeks as well is very important. And don't forget fun and family time, because at the end of the day, that child is precious, that child is still important, come 11 plus or not. You know, that, as I say, they are our precious jewel that we are very ambitious for them. So they really need to have fun. It's their childhood as well. So how do you help your child? So I'm going to just move on to that to make sure that they're well prepared. How you help your child? Is it the right school for your child? That's a good one too. The way to help your child. Think about the needs of your child. Think carefully about which schools you want them to try. Some time, depending on the open day, take your child to such open day. Some of this is applicable to us now, and some of this is applicable towards the end. So, but it's just something to think about. Long commute places a constraint on the amount of after-school activities, what's possible revision time. So think about which selective school will work if you're going to do the school run or they're going to take the bus by themselves. What preparation route or approach are you going to take? Group tuition, one-to-one, group courses, books, depending on what's right for you. So have a think about that. If you start early, concentrate on core skills, math and English. Once this is solid, your child has a good place to be able to learn and expose to the reasoning. Obviously, we teach reasoning from our 6+ class and towards the end of the term, and we expose the children early to the non-verbal reason and the verbal reasoning. Children need to learn the material. So sometimes I'll go back to point 3. We find that some parents give papers to their children. For example, they have a whole year to prepare and start giving them past papers from October and the child has not learned the concept. That usually has a knockback effect on the children, because nobody wants not to do well. So I don't want them getting 20% when they're supposed to be getting 70%, 80%. And the only reason that's happening is because they haven't been taught. So please don't, let's do things in sequence and not test the children unless they've learned the material. Unless your strategy is to test, then teach them what they don't know. But sometimes it really doesn't help our children with that. So that covers point 4. Keep pressure and stress out of it. So this is your child, and they're more important, as I said, than any exam that they're going to do. So let's listen to our children. Let's put plans in place. Let's support them. If they don't understand something, let's help them as well with it. So less pressure, because sometimes once children read our energy, they see that you're panicking, they begin to panic as well. So they are going to be fine. You're going to be fine. The whole family are going to be fine. I mean, we have several children that have done the 11 plus and they've done well. Develop a wide vocabulary. So one of the core reasons some children are successful in their 11 plus is because they read a lot. Their parents talk to them a lot. They do sightseeing. They go out. They just don't. They engage with the world around them, and so their vocabulary is wide and is broad. And they ask questions. They check the dictionary for the word's meaning. So it's never too early to start helping your child to develop vocabulary. When they read a book they don't understand, talk about the book with them, just to make sure they understand what they're learning or they're reading. If they don't know the meaning of a word, get a dictionary. I know sometimes it's easier for us to tell them the meaning, but I think we want to teach them how to fish as well, get them to get a dictionary and check the meaning themselves. They become resourceful and independent. Times table. It's very important to learn times table, even from year 1, the relevant ones, 2 times, 5 times table, and 10. And then we move on to year 2. I had 3 times table to 4 times table. But I think by year 3, your child should know their times table up to 12. It really, really helps, because a lot of topics in maths, especially the fractions, cannot be done if they don't have a solid times table foundation. So in the car, different strategies we use. I started with jumping in 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, before I said 2 times 1 for my child, because she just couldn't get it. But once I taught her the jumping method, and I said, okay, once she's learned that, I said, when you say 5, then that's 5 times 1. When you say 10, that's 5 times 2. So different strategies that help your child to learn the times table. But please don't put this on a backseat because it's times table. It can hold your child back in maths. So don't move too fast in maths as well. I know we are all eager parents and we are ambitious with our children. We don't want gaps. Listen to the experts sometimes when we say they need to consolidate. It's not because we don't trust your child or not. It's just because once a child gets it, they get it, and then they can access higher level of maths. But if they're not really competent in a topic, or it's not grounded, and you keep pushing and pushing, sometimes the knowledge of the basics just goes at the back of their head, and they can't even retrieve it to be able to answer basic questions. So please, let's take our time with our children. They will get to where we want if you trust us or wherever you're taking them to. Make a plan and stick to it, on what works for you and what works for your children, and develop stamina in your child. Sometimes they need to be pushed further, and sometimes you need to know that actually go to bed. I think you've done enough. So it's actually being able to know when we need to push and pull, encourage, give a hug, and just let it be. Be honest with your child. Some children are just not made for 11 plus. So understand what is right for your child and let's support them with that. Okay, 12 weeks revision plan. I don't want to go into this because one, it's still a long journey, but I would just brush on it so that we have enough time for question and answer. Because 12 weeks for us will be next year, May, June. Yeah, next year, May, June. And it's still a bit of a journey. So, but I'll just touch up on a few topics so we can have a bit more time to ask questions. So if you have a 12-week plan, it should look like something like this. Each week, continue to work on core skills, keep this fresh, mixed with longer or shorter tasks. So if you're using papers at that time, you want to make sure that it could be 20 question for English, 20 question, and then you gradually develop their stamina for longer papers. Each week, do 1 practice papers on each of the subjects. That really helps. Structure mock exams at home, time it. So for example, if 50 question, 50 minutes, after 50 minutes, if they can only get to question 30, draw a line under 30, and then you've timed them, and then see how long it takes them to actually finish it. And you gradually work their confidence up and timekeeping as well until they get to where they need to get to. So 4 weeks plan could look like this: revise key topics. And those key topics you would be able to deduce from the papers. Tricky topics that your child is just struggling with, we encourage them to attend I don't like people calling it crash course because that itself crashes the child. No, I would say a program that is structured over the summer, which will encourage revision, practice papers, working on their time, working on their speed, accuracy, exam, simulating exam situation, and for them to do some mocks as well. And towards the end, we encourage rest, play, and relax. So for example, if your child is sitting the exam in the next 2 weeks, try to do 1 paper, 2 paper each. When I say each, I mean in the topics per day. But after they've done, it could be 2 hours in the morning, then 2 hours in the evening, let them play. And because they're just like us, once our get saturated, we can't do anything. So you want to make sure that there's rest, play, and relaxation as a family in the mix as well. A few tips on when the child is actually going to, on the exam, for the exam day, eat the routine days before with good nutrition, food, rest, exercise. Don't pile up the work. Release the pressure, reassure your child, a lot of cuddles, a lot of hugs. It's very important that we look after their well-being. I always say it, our children are more important to us than math and English. So organize yourself before the day, find the route, stationaries packed, print the address. If both parents have to attend, one sits in the car, one walks them down because you don't want to be looking for parking and time is going, you don't want pressure. Ensure you arrive on time. Your child eats light breakfast. My son cannot eat breakfast. So if I'm going to force him to eat breakfast on that exam day, he's going to just go to the toilet. So you really need to know what's right for your child. And also encourage your child when they get to the exam hall, it's focus, it's your work. You don't get distracted by anybody. Read the instruction and just follow the instruction from the instructor on the day. So just to wrap up on that, our children are able, they can do a lot in the right environment, with the right structure, the right environment, the right teachers. We are able to push them to success. We're able to expose a lot to them. And we have an opportunity for parents that have not used our services before on the 7th online to join a free taster for an hour between 10 and 11, just to see our program and see our teachers online. Our teachers are selectively interviewed because for me, kindness is very important for children, because when a child is able to trust that this grown-up, this adult has my best interest at heart, they open up and they're open to learn, ask questions, and open to be themselves. So it's important that our children, our parents, our teachers have the best interest at heart. So along all our centers, we make sure that our teachers represent our values and our ethos. So on the 14th, when we resume September, we have tester sessions. So if you want to book your child in, they will pop it into the chat. You can use that to book your child in either online on the 7th as well as on the 14th, but online is especially for those that would want to try our online program before we start fully on the 14th at the center as well as online. Yes, so please, if you do have questions, and yes, before I finish, I did promise that I was going to talk about the offer. So for new parents that would join us, we're happy to waive enrollment fee of £50. If you let us know by the 7th of September after the online session, if you'd like to join us, and because we still need to invoice you, and if you're able to commit by the 9th. to join us either online or at the center in Dartford or Southgate. So thank you for listening. I took a bit more time, but yes, we can open up to questions. If you have any questions, please, you can ask it by using the raise hand function on Zoom, or if you're okay to just pop it in the chat. I'm happy to answer a question before I ask our parents to join in. Thank you for listening. One of the questions says, what else can I do to encourage a reluctant reader? He's a boy. Yes, I'm glad you put in bracket, is a boy. My son too was a reluctant reader. So what I did, I got Kindle and I had to get the books on there for him. Because of course, most of the children are used to screen, but some books he had to read and it was a give and take. When he was younger, we read together and we made it fun. But as they get to year 4, they need to be able to read by themselves. But for me, I know I like them to pick a book and read. It's important. But what's important is that your child reads. So Audible helped us a lot. Kindle helped us a lot. And then as he grew older, he listened to books. Because for me, it was more about getting the knowledge into his brain and the knowledge of the books and the stories into his mind, more than just picking a book. So it depends on what works for your child, but I would try that. And then it was also a lot of influencing and negotiating. As for the boy, my daughter would happily pick a book and read, but for him, he was more interested in football, games, and other things, but he had to read a book. So, but then the school he went to was also particular on reading, and they had to keep up with the reading record and they lose points. So if you're able to work with your child's teacher in school and just see how you can work together, that will be very helpful. So yeah, I'm just going to check the chat as well. 1 second. 1 second. Yes, it's changed. I only mentioned CEM because it was, so one of the questions that you mentioned CEM for Bexley, I thought it changed. Yes, it changed. I mentioned it just to be able to show to us that there are different exam board for the different grammar school that we might target. So before, some parents assumed that because it was around Kent, Medway, and Bexley, everything was the same. So it's always good to check the website to see any updates. And some schools also set their own 11+ exam. So you just need to make sure that we keep checking the school website, check the council. We are in Scotland. My son is in primary 7, P7, sorry, which is P6 in England. Okay, let me read it up. I really don't know anything about grammar school, so I guess I will have to find out. You'll be 11 in October. Oh, okay. Doctor, if you don't mind, I'm gonna if you don't mind giving us a ring on the office number, it'll be good to catch up. Usually I cover England and Wales. I'm not familiar with Scotland, but it's something that we can read. I assume that because your child will be 11 in October, so they're still in primary 6. I'm not sure about the 11+, if this is the same way with us, but if possible, give us a ring and I can have a look before, or if you call us and I know when you can call back and have a look for you and check and be able to mention or help with that. But it's something you can do. Also Google, if you Google grammar school entrance in Scotland, or put your area, that might just be even more specific for you because something will come up. And then you can still call us as well. I've got Queen Esther. You raised your hand. Do you want to unmute? And you can ask your question.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for the section. Yeah, my question is, my daughter is going to year 4 this September, and I want to know is it the right time to start preparing her for that? Because I don't want to be rushing, like kind of just as you said in the presentation, that a good foundation is good and we don't have to put so much pressure on her. So is it right time to start with her now, or do I
Okay.
have to wait?
Um, it's I will answer it as a parent as well as
Okay.
and learning director.
All right.
As a parent, I would, depending on what you've done with your child up to date, it'll be good
Okay.
to know your child's report, what was said about your child end of year 3. Are they working towards expected or beyond expectation? It's a very important year 4. So it's because that's when you want to make sure that there are no gaps before the
Mm.
year-long program. I would recommend booking a taster, get your child assessed. That will
Okay.
give you an idea of where they are. And then
Okay.
you can then make a decision afterwards. If you already know where your child is, oh, actually, English is a place where it's a topic that they're not so good at. I would say start working on that. Don't wait until year 5. If it's math, same thing as well. Or if they've got no knowledge about reasoning and you're okay to teach them, you can buy bond books. If you're not, then get them to a tutor that is able to help you. So that's how I would answer it. As a provider, majority of our parents are busy, and so it's very important that unless you're able to keep up with your child's learning and education during the week, meaning structured, knowing what they're learning, I would say contract it out. When I mean contract it, I mean it doesn't mean that you take a backseat. No, you're working with an expert to help you, meaning they
Okay.
have a structure, they have a set topics. Even though some schools do not follow they follow the national, they say they follow it, but there's some
Mm.
topics. So I'll give you an example. We spend 2 hours on a Saturday per subject.
Okay.
And in school, they don't even spend 90 minutes a week.
Wow.
And this is because, of course, they have a full curriculum, they have other things they have to do. So children do sometimes in primary school 30 minutes 3 times a week of maths.
Mm.
Is that enough? It depends on what is being taught in that 30 minutes. For a whole full curriculum of the academic year, that's not enough. Especially for
Mm.
English and maths, you need to spend a bit more time. So you need, if unless you are able to give that time and focus on those top subjects, contract out to somebody that can help you to make sure that they also they're on track with that. So before we carry on with the questions, I just would like to invite Samantha Amakihe. Samantha is, just want us to hear from her as well. Samantha is an example of a parent with a child that started with us around 5 years old. And, oh, you're welcome, Queen. Started with us with I'm not sure if it's the reading program, but then went on to do the 11 plus, got into school of choice, and just wanted to share as a parent how either Ant Learning helped them or how they supported their child, because it's also important that no matter what we do, if the home front is not supplementing what we do, it could be tricky as well. So Samantha, if you're there, let me see if I can find you. We can get you on. Paul, are you able to pin Samantha first?
Yeah.
Oh,
Hello?
hi, Samantha.
Hi, how are you?
I can't see you.
Oh, let me see if I can mute my. Oh, I think the host has disabled it, so it needs to be done on.
Okay. Fola, can you help us?
Cool.
But pending that time, I wouldn't keep us. So, Samantha, just tell us about your 11 plus experience as a parent
Yeah.
of a boy.
Yeah. It was yeah, so hi, Samantha Mackie here. My son is in started Dartford Grammar last September, so now he's going into year 8. So we started him at the age of 5, which is, I guess in some cases, some people say, wow, that's really young, but we could tell from a young age, I think from about 2, that he needed more stimulation. He grasp things very quickly. And I was conscious that I was doing a lot of stuff at home, not even realizing I was doing a lot of stuff at home, but just doing numbers and reading and all different things like that. And I just was waiting to see what school was going to do. So when he started reception, they could see that he was quick at picking up things, but at the same time, we just felt he needed more. So I remember Fola kept on saying, "Oh, my sister has a Saturday school," and I was like, "Yeah, that's cool, Fola, thank you." But he kept on saying it, and so we thought, you know what, let's just go and see. So we put him through the assessment, and his what was it? His reading, no, his maths was a bit lower, and his reading was higher. So we thought, let's start him with the maths, and he just loved that environment. What I thought was fantastic was the fact that it was a small group, and it was just focused on the level of the child, not necessarily the age of the child, because obviously in primary school they group you according to age. So he was 5, but he could have been, I think he was in a class with 6-year-olds and all of that. It just didn't matter. It was just the level of his capability. And every week we had the booklets, and me and him will go through them. I think our set day was like Tuesday or something. Gosh, it was such a long time ago. And you're just going through the booklets with him. And I would say I was so grateful for it, because I'm not a teacher. I am not someone who has that patience, who can kind of break things down. I can do the homework with him, but to break it down, I was so grateful for the teachers who can just break these things down and just go through all the programs. So as he got older, especially, as time's pushing on, you're thinking about the 11 plus, and you're thinking about the different tests, because we wanted to put him through the Kent and Bexley tests. We started to think about, what he needs both, not only the maths, but he needs the English. So we put him through the 9 o'clock to 11 and 11:30 to 1:30. And, we were telling him that we did prepare him that this is what's going to happen on Saturdays, just to prepare you. And, it was hard work. I commend him, because he did persevere and plow through it, and he was really good at just getting on with it. There were times where it was hard, it was tough, especially the non-verbal reasoning. And when lockdown hit, we went to online learning, so that was challenging. But either way, again, he found it a bit fun, because he was learning online as well, and we'd never done that before. And going on the laptop and raising his hand to answer the questions, and just going through all those motions, because we were just preparing him just bit by bit by bit. And then I was reading one thing, I remember was it last year or 2 years ago, just before he started the 11 plus, when I was registering him, and it said online that whatever your child learns in school will prepare them for the 11 plus. I thought, that's so interesting. I was like, really? So I remember asking him, after he did both the Kent and Bexley test, everything that came up on the test, did that all come up in school from what you learned in your primary school? And he said, no, the stuff that came up were things that he learned from his Saturday school, from ad learning, as well. He had one-to-one tuition as well. And I thought, look at that. So this thing that was said online that, and I get it, you go primary school, they do primary school and everything, and you hope that they pick up everything there. But things like non-verbal reasoning, that was something that, oh my gosh, we thank God for ad learning, because he had to really learn and practice and practice and practice that until it became something that registered with him, because that was one big area that came up, I think it was a Bexley test or so, and he did not learn that in primary school. So imagine if he just kind of rocked up to the test and had no real knowledge of that, and that was a core area for the Bexley test. So I think with our preparation, because we did start at 5 years old, it was this kind of banking up all that knowledge from 5 years old up until the age of 10 years old when he did the test. And it just kind of all prepared him for, those 2 tests that he took. And I'm really grateful that we did that. I'm really grateful that we started him off in this additional supplementary learning because he truly needed it. It was something that was really key for him. And we've done the same with our daughter. We started her a bit late. We waited until she was about 6. And so she's done her first academic year of English, and learning. And she's really done well with her comprehension and been creative in her writing, and her teacher knows her and understands her. And I thought this is so beautiful just for her to have that interaction in a small class, and we'll start her again in a new term in September. So Annan has been part of our life. Gosh, my son is 12 now. Wow, what's that? 7 years now? Gosh, that's so crazy. So yeah, we truly thank God. We thank God because our eyes were set on that grammar school, and it was a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm glad he aced it, and he is a determined boy. So
very.
And thank you for trusting us as well. I think we just wanted you to share with us as well, for you, how we helped you. You did say that, and how the rigor and towards the end, how did you manage your emotion? Because I think it's important that people hear that.
Yeah, it was tough. I'll be honest. That preparation, it was pretty tough. We did do one-to-one tuition towards the end as well. So we did a mixture of both. But it was, I would say, towards the last few months, we really had to just keep on encouraging him. Just like, don't worry, you're almost there. You're almost there. Because it was full on. I'll be honest, it was full on. It's something I did not enjoy. I'll be honest, as a parent, I did not enjoy it, but we kept on saying that, we're almost there. The goal is almost there. Once you do the tests, that's it. Just chillax. You don't need to worry about it. So there was a lot of motivation. We had to remind him that, we did a holiday, like we've got a holiday to look forward to. His birthday's in August. So we was just kept on reminding him, encouraging him. Just I always would sit with him or sit near him when he was doing his work. I think that was really important, that he didn't feel isolated from us when doing his work, because we wanted to make sure that we were on board with it. He would ask me questions or some of the stuff I had no clue about, but he'd ask me questions about things, and just for the sake of reassurance. And I just wanted him to know that, this is all for a purpose, just to, we wanted his foundation to be strong. Yeah.
So thank you so much, and thank you for trusting us, and we're very proud of the man he's becoming.
Absolutely, we thank God.
Thank you.
No
and the next our next parent is Funke Oyejide. So this our parent came to us towards the end, which was during summer school, but we just wanted you to hear from both a parent that did the whole almost 6 years with us, and then another parent that did the last run. So hi Funke, thank you so much for joining. By the way, Titiloye was such a great pleasure to have at summer school last year. He always brought joy and happiness to the class, and so very proud of him. So,
thank you, Lara.
Okay, how was your experience with Titiloye joining us, like the last month of his preparation for the exam?
Hi everyone. So for us, we had similar to Samantha, we had started quite early. We actually started a lot of practice towards all of this from reception. Part of it being that my child is he's a boy, so very, very laid back. And he's one that requires quite a lot of pushing, and he takes his time, like really takes his time. So lucky for us, we were able to, pay attention to that right from when he was much younger. So we used to attend Saturday lessons. And then when he got to year 5, we started the one-to-one lessons. And I believe it was the summer, it must have been the summer of the 11 plus exams.
Last year, yes.
We attended, Ant Learning Summer School, which I found really helpful because it was such a structured environment for the 3 weeks that we were there. Similar to school, where you're there from 9 a.m. and pick up is 3 p.m. For me, what I liked most about it was the fact that I got regular feedback from the teachers. And the feedback was always very spot on. And I remember thinking, I think it was the first week, and I thought to myself that, he's only spent a week in this class. So how come the teacher actually knows him that well? So all of the feedback we'd had right from time that I already knew about, the teacher was able to pick up on it and focus on some of that. Attending those sessions, his confidence, during the 3 weeks, because we had I think we were very anxious about the exam, especially for him, where he's, for a lot of these kids, they've never really sat in an exam setting. Yes, they do the SATs, but it's not the same. So that really helps with his confidence, because with the summer school, you would have testing, and the focus is the 11 plus contents. They come back home with the pack of learning with the books that they've learned during the week. So as a parent, you're able to go through it to see what areas that they've struggled in. So for us, it was very helpful, and we're starting grammar school next week.
Oh,
congratulations. So for us, it was money well spent, time well spent, because we actually had to, because we live in Thamesmead, and had to commute all the way to Dartford for the sessions, which was quite uncomfortable for me because of the journey. But, I just had to make it work because it was just very important for us. And we thank God.
Oh, that's great. I'm so proud of him. And he did I mean, before I let you go, Funke, how did he find it? Did he tell you about it, or was it just
I think for me, the one thing that I think I could have done better is, I think at the time he was going to sit for the exam, we should have had proper conversation about an actual exam. Because for him, on the very first exam that he had, the night before, unfortunately, he didn't get enough sleep. I think he worried so much about it.
no?
So, but I think if we had quite a lot of conversation about it, to say, look, it's fine, you've done a lot of the testing.
Yeah.
It's nothing, there's nothing in the exam, in the papers that you haven't seen before. It's going to be fine. And I think also when he sat for the Bexley exam, it's always good to speak to the kids about it. For parents that it's your first time doing it, it's good for the kids to realize that when you actually, before you get into the class, there are going to be loads of children. There's going to be a lot of traffic. There's going to be people walking. There's just a lot of it. And I think some of that could actually get the child very anxious. The Kent exam was different because they have quite a lot of centres. Yeah. So when we went there, you hardly see anybody. You just go, you drive in, and that's it, But for Bexley, it wasn't funny, because the amount of time we spent on the line, it was just ridiculous. And this child is just so anxious, thinking, look, I just want to sit down. I just want to get in and do the exam. So I think if we had, but that's because I didn't realize. I have an 8-year-old, so I know better this time, because when he's going to do his exams, these are the sorts of conversation we're going to have, so that, when they actually get to the point where they're doing the exam, they're not as worried. Things like, as an example, just know that, if they give you break time, you might not get the opportunity to go outside for break time. You might have to sit at your desk to have your packed lunch or something. So these are conversations that is helpful for the child, so that they don't go there. And if it's a child like my child that loves playing, he comes back and he complains, oh, Mom, they didn't let us go outside. And I'm thinking, well, you went there to do the exam. It's not about playing. So it's always good to have these conversations. But, I think all in all, it was a very good experience.
Oh, fantastic. I'm mindful of time, but before we go, if there's anyone that has questions for Funke and Samantha before, just so that you can ask your question. I mean, it's very helpful to know and talk to people that have gone ahead of us, because then we're able to share the experience, and you're able to pick up from that as well. So if you have any question, you can raise your hand or pop it in the chat for them, and we can take the question. Well, yeah, thank you. It's absolute pleasure to be able to support our parents and our children through this journey. And as I always say, we try as much as possible to get them ready. But at the end of the day, they will do well wherever they go. By God's grace. So if there's any question, please let us know now before we have another 2-3 minutes, and then we can call it a good evening to everyone to enjoy what's rest of the summer. If there's any question, let me just have a look in the chat. Okay. How many schools did you both apply to? So we have a question for you, Funke or Samantha.
Gosh, we live in Kent, so we only could apply for 6. I think 6. I think it's different for Bexley.
So, but that means you sat 2 exams or 2 applications, right? But
Yeah,
one
so
application gave you exposure to.
That's right. Yeah, so he sat Kent and Bexley, and then we put, gosh, is it 4 or 6? I can't even remember. From those Kent and Bexley boroughs.
Yes, so that's similar to us as well. But what I will say is, if you don't want your child to go to a particular school, do not put that school on your list. Only put the schools that you want your child to go to.
Okay.
I agree.
That's good. I mean, my time, I think I did 4 because he did a bit of independent school. And for my daughter, I only did 1. Yes,
Oh, wow.
because, yeah, I just said to myself that we're not going to shop around. We already know where we want to go. Yeah, he found it stressful to do 4 or 5 exams, but with her, one exam. But obviously, the one exam had exposure to 6 schools. So, but then there was no point just doing, because I knew I was not interested. There was no, yeah, I think as you do more, you get more confident. Okay, let me see if there's another question. But yeah, I think because of time, we are going to call it a good evening. Thank you so much, Funke and Samantha, for trusting us with your precious jewels, and for everyone that joined our webinar today. We appreciate your time, and we hope that we're able to have given you enough information to support your child and yourself through the journey, the academic journey. And just a brief reminder, we have testing session on the 7th for online, and we resume back on the 14th of September for the new academic year, where we see our children come back again and bursting with energy and enthusiasm. Next week, for parents with younger children, we have a reading webinar, and this is just to support our children in making sure our parents to understand any tools and tips to support early reading development and how we can also help their children. So thank you again, and have a good evening, and thank you again for joining us today. Bye.